The 17th regular session of the Human Rights Council was held in Geneva from 30 May to 17 June in the midst of several events unfolding in the Arab world, which many call the Arab Spring.
Spring turns to summer. We are feeling the heat of terrible events in some parts of the region as we continue to witness legitimate claims being met with repression and extreme violence by forces determined to extend the dark winter.
The Council considered the first report of the Commission of Inquiry into alleged human rights violations taking place in the context of the conflicts in Libya as a follow-up to the Council's 15th special session, and it held an interactive dialogue with the members of the Commission.
The Commission also found that there have been many serious violations of international humanitarian law committed by government forces and their supporters, amounting to war crimes as defined under Article 8 of the ICC Statute and the Geneva Conventions. These acts fall within the meaning of war crimes.
The Council also heard the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navi Pillay, who presented her preliminary report on the situation of human rights in Syria.
The government has responded with excessive violence against unarmed protesters. I'm gravely concerned about the human rights and humanitarian crises that the country is facing.
As a follow-up to its special session on the human rights situation in Côte d'Ivoire, the Council held an interactive dialogue with the Commission of Inquiry on the alleged human rights violations that had taken place in that country following the elections of November 2010.
In this context, the Commission concluded that many human rights violations and violations of international humanitarian law have been committed since the 28th of November. They include, inter alia, killings, summary executions, torture, rape, and the use of children by parties to
The Council adopted reports on the human rights situation in 16 countries under its Universal Periodic Review. It also held interactive dialogues with the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navi Pillay, who presented a series of reports on the activities of her office and on thematic issues. The Council held 14 interactive dialogues with special procedures mandate holders, such as the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, the Special Rapporteur on Transnational Corporations, and the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women. It also heard from the independent experts on Burundi and Haiti. The Council also held 4 panel discussions on the victims of terrorism, on women's rights, on intolerance, and on best practices in the fight against racism. At the end of the session, the Council adopted 29 resolutions, including one to extend the mandate of the Commission of Inquiry on Libya and another to create the mandate of independent expert on the human rights situation in Côte d'Ivoire. It also adopted text on the human rights situation in Belarus, on the rights of migrants fleeing events in North Africa, on human rights and peaceful protest, and on the right to health. The Council also submitted to the General Assembly the draft text for the creation of a communication procedure under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. It was also at this session that the first resolution ever on human rights, sexual orientation, and gender identity was adopted.